Hi everybody. Today I wanted to tune in and talk specifically about using meditation with spell work. So I use meditation for a lot of things, to improve my quality of life, to improve my mental fitness, to improve my emotional health. I use a lot of meditation with movement and mantras. But today, there's so much to say about that. But today I wanted to talk specifically about how to use meditation when you're in a state of spell work. So when we do a spell, what we're doing is we are communicating with the subconscious, and we could also think of communicating with the divine as well, depending on what your view on magic is or what kind of deities you're working with. So think of a spell as kind of like a beacon that you're sending out. So it's something that either your subconscious is able to perceive or something that the divine or your deity is able to perceive, depending on the work that you're doing. And so, when you read these instructions for these spells or you write a spell for yourself, I find it very useful and important to spend a few moments in meditation after the spell. And here's why. When we're putting our energy out and we're manifesting, we are, creating a space for something to come into our life. And what that might mean is letting go of something else. That might mean turning on to a different path. And I have found that when I use meditation directly after spell work, I'm actually able to receive the insight that will help me enact the spell best, because at the end of the day, magic is great, but it is not an excuse for working in the third dimension. And what I have found often is that there are specific steps that we can take in the third dimension that will help us reach our goal. And if we leave it all up to manifestation and up to the other dimensions to do for us, then not only will it take longer, it probably won't be as potent. And it won't have the same energy as when we do it ourselves, right? Kind of like the chick coming out of the egg. We do have to become stronger in order to live in the new world that we're trying to create. Every time that you're doing a spell, you're changing your consciousness. And so what that requires of the world around you is to adapt to that level of consciousness. So that means maybe changing your friend group, changing your career path, changing your job, even just changing your habits. And so when you're done with a spell and you've created space for that intention to reach you, then, spend a few moments in meditation. This is a time when I also like to take notes, right? And so what I think is important to remember here is that it's not really important whether or not you remember the divine information that comes to you. This happens to me all the time, where I'm doing some kind of magic or I'm doing some kind of work, and you get that little ping, like intuition that's speaking to you, and it often has like that energy. If you receive divine information, then you know the difference, or you're learning the difference slowly. And so I feel a lot of pressure after spell work to try, I have to write this thing down that I received, when really the important part is that you're integrating the lesson. And integration doesn't come specifically from memorization. It doesn't come specifically from setting yourself reminders. It comes from being able to inhabit yourself with understanding, right? And so that understanding and that wisdom is not the kind of thing that is only effective if you write it down. We are in a culture where we're using, the alphabet a lot, and we like to have evidence because of our memory issues, and because we move forward in time and we have to leave a lot of things behind. And so we really want our past selves to leave messages for our future selves, so that, we can be confident that our future selves won't forget. But I think what's important to remember in that situation is that integrating and understanding and having wisdom is something that we always have access to. Any anxiety that we have about losing that nugget of information is kind of that leftover spiritual trauma from coming into this world and having to forget, the rest of our, metaphysical past, or whatever you want to call it, our past lives or our past reincarnations, or our, experience in the spirit realm. And, we're in the third dimension right now, and our path is pretty much laid out in such a way that if we are able to integrate the lesson, then we're able to live from that truth. And so if you're feeling pressure to write things down during meditation, I would invite you to maybe explore just reminding yourself that the information that's coming into you from the divine is always accessible, and it will be there for you when you need it, right? There are so many times where I've done a spell, I meditate afterwards. In the situation of spell work, I do like to meditate sitting still. I don't always do it that way, but I definitely do after spell work because, it is hard. This is one of the interesting things about like propaganda and social programming. It's really hard for information from our subconscious or information from our higher self or information from, the source or the divine or other realms to get to us when our conscious mind has all of this noise going on, right? And so what we can invite ourselves to do is kind of learn to listen past the conscious mind. And so meditating in stillness is really good. And so, I'll meditate. I will, receive some kind of message that, sometimes it's like a mental image of like a person in my life that's toxic, or a mental image of, me making a choice, like sitting at a computer and opening an email. Like, these images or these scenarios will come into my mind. And I think to myself, like, wow, that would be really interesting to write down. I forget about it. And then I'm in a situation, months, weeks, even, one of the most potent examples that I have in my life is years later when I had a vision of being in an apartment and lighting a candle, and I like felt this need to kind of draw the apartment, and then I reached another point in the meditation where my thoughts had changed, and I just totally abandoned that idea because I was continuing to listen and I was just taking in the information. And then years later, I'm in that apartment and I'm lighting the candle, and the memory comes back to me. And so that's an example of how, time's not linear anyway, but the way that we are integrating information into our subconscious and into our reality has a lot more to do with the way that we behave, the way that we feel, the things that we consume, our nature, our predispositions. And so those are the things that we're trying to alter with spell work. And it's kind of ironic that the things that we put out into the world are only capable of manifesting if we change what's going on inside of us. And I think that's why meditation and spell work really go together well. There are definitely other ways that you can receive information. I know a lot of people divinate. When I'm doing spells for other people, instead of meditating, I'll divinate. And so I'll do a tarot reading about the spell that I just did, and then I'll use that tarot reading to kind of inform. I'll let them know I did the spell. These are some things that you can do in order to help manifest it in your life, because the spell is not the end of the manifestation process. So I do have a lot more to say about meditation, but when it comes to spell work, I think like that's a good solid place to start and stop. And then, once you're done with the meditation, you receive the information, then spend some time journaling, remember whatever you can, release whatever didn't need to be remembered, and try to reach a place of like clarity and confidence in yourself. Because another thing that spell work does is it kind of reminds us that we do have the ability to act in this dimension, and we do have the ability to change and create our own reality. And so if we've been in a situation where we've sacrificed that, or we've given that power to other people or to society or the world around us, then, we do have to kind of cope with learning to call that power back to us. And we get instructions on how to do that. When we seek, the thing that we're seeking is always seeking us. So I hope that helps inform your practice. And if you struggle with meditation, I would definitely love to do a full meditation video, but there are so many more, intelligent, like meditation-centered teachers that I think may have more potent advice. But for me, meditation has always been a really strong part of my practice. So if you've struggled with meditation before, or if you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments, and I can share, maybe not the most informed, meditation philosophically information, but definitely the most personal and potent information for myself as someone who has really struggled with meditation. So I'm sending lots of love.